There are no shortcuts. You have to work. You have to work hard, accumulate experience, accumulate knowledge, and hone your skills, because there are a lot of skills involved to make sure that you're getting better and better. And trust me, whoever is your chef will acknowledge it and will start slowly to introduce you. Communication, endurance, because it's a very hard job with long hours. You're hot, you're cold, you're gonna get cut, you're gonna get yelled at. I mean, it's part of the experience.
Hello and welcome to this interview with Jimmy. Jimmy is going to talk about himself a little bit and introduce himself to the audience that doesn't know about you. So, Rockstar, time to shine.
Thank you so much for having me. Hey, my name is Jimmy. I'm 28 years old, and I have been working in restaurants as a chef for the past 10 years, a little bit more than that.
So, let's go back to the past. What inspired you to become a chef?
It's a very good, unexpected question, obviously. So I grew up to half Lebanese, half Syrian family. Um, I grew up in a small village of 3,000 people. It's located between the mountains in the very north of Israel, on the borders of Lebanon, actually. So the fresh ingredients, the fresh produce, the seasonality of everything that's there is huge, had a huge influence on the food that we eat. And my mom is a great cook. So everything is always revolved around food. They're on feasts and tables and barbecues and all that kind of stuff. So, I just found my passion in my mother's cookbooks in the kitchen. I used to open the cookbooks and look when she's not there, because she didn't really let me help out in the kitchen that much. But I kind of forced my way in there and slowly built my passion for food.
Amazing. So, when you were starting out, what was the toughest thing? Was it finding a job or was it the learning experiences? Because we have a lot of young audience who would like to join but are not really sure about what should their first step be.
So I feel like the toughest thing, actually, on the contrary of what a lot of people think, is finding the job. It's not. That's not really the toughest thing. The toughest thing is to kind of find what type of food you want to cook and what type of food you're passionate about. There's so many different kinds of cuisines in the world, right? And every type of cuisine has its own regional aspects and elements to it that makes it different from each other. So finding the right technique, the right ingredients, the right kind of food that you are really, really passionate about and you like to eat. Because ultimately, the best thing you could do as a chef is cook food that you like to eat, because then that really magnifies your passion about what you do. So finding a job is not a difficult thing. Everybody's hiring. We're always short-handed in restaurants. I mean, that's how it is. And you don't really need a diploma to be hired in any kind of restaurant. You can start at an entry level position and work your way through. And that's kind of like the way to do it. There are no shortcuts. You have to work. You have to work hard. Accumulate experience, accumulate knowledge, and hone your skills, because there are a lot of skills involved in being a chef. So it's a complex thing, but yeah, the most difficult thing is really finding your niche. Like anything in the world, you grew up and you're like, oh, what do you want to be? It's not an easy thing to decide. When you're young, you're fascinated by astronauts and doctors and whatever. You're like, oh, I want to be a doctor. But then you grow up and you start exploring. Oh, I like this. Oh, this is not for me. And then it's the same thing with food. Food is a very general kind of umbrella that has so many different niches underneath it for you to explore and fall in love with.
Oh, okay, amazing. So you just mentioned a set of skills, but you said it's complex. So what are some most important skills that young people at the beginning of their careers should focus on?
This question is split into two main sections. The first one is, and that's the very general kind of trait. It's not even a skill. It's a trait it's a habit that you grow as a person. It's the ability to take in feedback and learn. It is something crucial for anything, for anyone, to be able to learn and advance, learn new learn new skills, techniques, and explore and really better and broaden their knowledge. You need to be able to listen, not take things personally, and perform well under pressure. That's something. That's the first part of this question. It is really really important for young people who want to get started in this industry to kind of, I don't like to say this, but kind of like put your head down, do the work that's required, work on really bettering your skills, and to make sure that you're getting better and better. And trust me, whoever is your chef will acknowledge it and will start slowly to introduce you. You need to be obviously in the right environment for that to happen. With a horizon to look forward to. But that's kind of the general thing. The second part of this question is very simple: communication, endurance, because it's a very hard job with long hours. You're heat, you're cold, you're hot, you're cold. You're gonna get cut. You're gonna get yelled at. I mean, it's part of the experience. You need endurance, being able to communicate, perform very well under pressure, and be able to multitask. A cook that cannot multitask does not belong in the kitchen. I'm sorry, but if you can't fry something, cook something, cut something at the same time, do at least three or four different actions at the same time, then the production quality of what you're doing is not gonna be enough. It's just not. You're not gonna make the cut.
So, what would be your hiring criteria factors when choosing team members?
So I go for hiring criteria. I go against what other people look for. So if you're looking for a job and you're going to like a classic restaurant or a bistro or whatever, you're met with this big shelf that's very serious and everything. They're gonna look for skill, experience. They're gonna look for some stability in your resume. Not jumping and hopping between jobs too often and stuff like that. Somebody that looks good, presents good, especially if it's an open kitchen type thing. I look for chemistry. The reason I look for chemistry when I'm hiring people is this is a very deeply personal field of business, especially in the kitchen. You're practically stuck with multiple individuals for 12, 14, 18 hours a day. You see them all day, you're around them all day, you're talking to them all day, you're hugging them, you're crying, you're angry, you're basically experiencing so much things together that if you guys don't have chemistry, it's just simply not going to work. That's number one. That's the base for me. Obviously, apart from that, there are different criteria that we'll talk about in a second. But chemistry is number one. You'll have to kind of feel a little bit of spark with that person. You're looking for the passion. You're looking for somebody that speaks the same language when it comes to work. If you're working in a delicate environment, you don't need anybody that's like rough and like gritty to kind of like throw that off balance. So that needs to match. The other important criteria are obviously, you want somebody that does have the skills or at least a minimal skill set to be able to perform the physical job. So what I like to do more than anything was sit down for a little interview and talk. There, I check the chemistry and the experience, of course, because you cannot really overlook the experience. And then if that person passes that initial interview, you bring them in for a little assessment. So you bring them in for 2-3 hours in the kitchen in the middle of the service or whatever it is that you're doing, and you give them a couple of things to do. You see how they move, how they act, how they cut, how they saute, how they interact with the environment and with the other people. And based on that, you understand if there's potential for that person specifically for you, or if not. The fact that I reject somebody, from hiring them to work with me, doesn't mean that they're not good. It just means that they're not suitable for the specific project that I need them for.
So you mentioned that you need endurance. So we know that this job is tough on your health. So what do you do and other people should do to actually keep a long career in this field and then also stay healthy?
There are a couple things that you could do. First of which, you have passion. If you don't have passion, you're in the wrong industry. I mean, because I don't think anybody that doesn't like being in a kitchen and being in that environment and producing food and entertaining people can endure the torture that is the kitchen. You know, you're, I mean, you're literally abusing yourself practically if you're not passionate. If you're passionate about it, it's rewarding and you feel great at the end of the day. The adrenaline kicks in. You know, you're on top of your game. You're feeding people. People are happy. It's a very positive experience. If you don't really feel passionate about it, it's not going to be a positive experience. So that's number one. Number two, take care of your mental health. That is something that is super important because it creates balance in your life. You know, when we're talking about a kitchen, we're talking about long hours. We're talking about a lot of hectic things that are going around. Everything needs to happen right now. A lot of people are talking and not necessarily yelling, but like high volume in terms of speed, high volume in terms of sound. There's a lot of things going on, and to be able to go home, whether it be meditate, go out for a run, I don't know, cook yourself a nice meal with your partner or whatever it is. Focus on building these good habits in order to create balance in your life and explore other things that you like to do. For example, I like to play video games. So I'm a gamer, and I go home sometimes after a stressful day, and I play video games until 4 in the morning, and I just get rid of all of that accumulated energy that I've been carrying with me all day, so I can go into bed or hang out with my partner or whatever it is I want to do in a more settled kind of mood, and I actually get to enjoy my time outside the kitchen as well.
Let's talk a little bit about the culinary school. How important was it in shaping you into the chef that you are today?
Okay, so culinary school was the biggest waste of time for me. I know it's a controversial thing to say, and obviously, in most cases, education is important. But what is more important is really being hands on in the kitchen and accumulating experience because nothing can prepare you for your first service like your first service. It is a completely exhilarating and terrifying experience that you cannot simply sit in a class and learn how to navigate. You have to be there. It's like when you're learning how to swim. You could sit in a class and watch, I don't know, like PowerPoint presentations on Olympic swimmers and, sorry for my French, like that. Or you could be thrown in the water and figure it out for yourself with a little bit of guidance. Whoops. So culinary school for me was a waste of time solely because I spent all of my teenage years learning, reading books, trying out recipes online, classic French cuisine, Italian, the very basic foundations of restaurants and hospitality were built on these two cuisines. So I spent most of my teenage years really researching and reading and accumulating that knowledge that culinary school did not really feel like anything was renewed for me. So in a lot of cases, if you want to, instead of doing high school, you want to enroll in culinary school, yeah, I would say it's worth it if the school itself is good and the programs are that they offer are modern enough, because it's very important to also look for how modern the techniques and the material is, because a lot of culinary schools nowadays are still teaching the same stuff they taught 40 years ago. And, I don't really see anybody serving banana splits anymore. I mean, with all the love, McDonald's does that, right? So I don't think anybody's looking to open a banana split shop.
So, what are some important factors, some decisions people should take into consideration, some things that people could forget or tend to overlook?
So when you're opening a business, and specifically a restaurant, there are a lot of different kinds of elements involved, way too much. And there is always going to be something that you will miss, that will fall in between the cracks and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. It's like, when you're getting ready to go to the beach and you always forget something at home. It's the same thing. So one of the most important things is to try to be as organized as possible, not in terms of planning, because, usually nothing really goes according to plan, but try to plan for different outcomes. Prepare yourselves for things that you don't really see coming. For example, you're opening your first restaurant, and you're like, oh, I need 7 chefs in the kitchen, and I need 3 waiters outside, and 2 bartenders, and yada 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 yada. Plan. You should have a backup plan to a situation where you don't have 6 chefs. You have 3. What are you gonna do then? Because that's the reality. Not it's not always that you get what you want. It's the same thing with ingredients, for example, right? So I can do testings for a menu in Israel, and I can come here with my recipes to try to open shop in Miami, but then find out that the ingredients are so different. The tomato is not the same, the onion's not the same, the flour is different, the salt affects the food differently here. So you have to start all over again. So I would say one of the most important things to do is to market research, understand where you are, understand the demand for the market, what is offered on the market in terms of labor force, ingredients, and suppliers, and all of the infrastructure and everything, and be real. Start small. Start with easy plans to execute, easy menus to produce, and make sure obviously the food tastes good. That's very important. Um, but focus on marketing, focus on making sure that the client experience, the guest experience is full and well-rounded, from walking inside the door, somebody to greet them, to sitting on the table, getting their water, drinks, cocktails, wine, whatever it is, enjoying the food, finishing up with the dessert, aperitif, and obviously the most important thing is to make sure to ask these people how they're enjoying their experiences, check up on them without being too pushy. So generally speaking, try to be as organized as possible, but always expect chaos and mess to happen, and be ready to do, I don't even say damage control, but to kind of control the panic, because opening restaurants are very stressful.
So, Jimmy, we've talked about a lot of professional tips and tricks, but could you tell us a little bit more about your day to day? How does it normally look? Or maybe you don't even have days and days.
So my daily life is very different day to day. I do keep a few habits that I really focus on, and to make sure that they're the base of my day to day. But generally speaking, the rest of my day really looks different depending on what day it is, what I'm doing, whether it be a private event, or I'm consulting for a restaurant, or I'm working on my brand, or recording my podcast, or doing whatever it is. So the base things that I do is I have a cup of coffee. It's really important. A cup of coffee in the morning with a cigarette on the porch. I have a beautiful view of North Miami, so I get all the greenery and the sea on the side. So take that in for a couple minutes. Scroll on the phone. Obviously, I'm a human being like everyone else. And then you go out for a run, or going for the gym, or doing some sort of physical activity is very, very important to kind of get started in the day. Taking a beautiful shower, shaving, make sure you're doing your skincare, make sure you're like well presented, but for yourself, not for other people, just to feel good about yourself, pick up your outfit for the day, whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, my routine includes just chilling with my partner, reading a book, doing something like very low key, cooking like a lazy dinner at home, anything like that, just to kind of wind down and, prepare myself to sleep and rest, basically. But that's the baseline, I guess, the frame of what my day looks like.
Let's talk a little bit about the reality shows because everybody wants to be rich and famous.
Of course, who doesn't?
So, what are your tips to getting a little bit more screen time, to, like being better in the competition if it's a cooking competition?
That's a very good question, because I'll respond to the first part of that question first. And everybody wants to be famous and rich, right? Because then everything, all the problems go away, and everything is suddenly easier. So there is really no shortcuts. You have to put in the work. You have to be hard at work. be diverse, be adaptive, so that whatever life throws your way, you can make lemonades out of lemon. You know what I mean? Have an open mind to things. Don't try to force anything, because whenever you force it, it's not. Whatever you force is not going to work. The universe will bring things to you. You just have to be ready to accept them. You have to be open enough to be like, bring it on. I will juice this, and I will make the best juice out of these fruits. You know what I mean? So that's number one. Number two, if you really want to be, I don't want to say, I really hate the word famous, but if you want to get to kind of, put your name out there and for people to kind of start to know you a little bit and gain traction, the most important thing is to be yourself and to talk and be verbal and be expressive. Because at the end of the day, when you're sitting in front of a camera, what people want to see, and more importantly, what the producers of the show want people to see, is fire. Is that rhythm, is that liveliness and hunger and that flame, that you want it that bad, and you're doing, what you're doing, and your shit, and what's happening, and you're on top of it. And that's, I guess, one of the most important things. But because at the end of the day, I think 90% of what is filmed doesn't really make it on the screen at the end of the day. So the more content you give to the camera, the more room for play they will have to make you look good. And it's a tool, like anything else. Everybody has a camera at home, but nobody has producers and cameramen and soundmen and people running behind the scenes, fetching you water and fetching you this and fixing your makeup and touching you up and all that kind of stuff. If I have to choose one experience that's crazy in the kitchen, I will tell you about this. So we were getting ready for New Year's. It's a big day in every restaurant. Everybody's trying to do something different, something exclusive, something expensive. The truffles and the expensive fish and the caviar and everything. All suppliers are very happy towards the end of the year, always. So we were getting ready, and I had a young Brazilian intern that was, helping us. He didn't speak Hebrew, very little English, and it was kind of difficult to communicate with them. But food is a very international language, so somehow it was, we managed to make it work. And he was torching something. I don't remember what it was, like a creme brulee or something like that. He was playing around with a torch, and the blowtorch started leaking gas, and you can hear it. It was like, and it caught on fire. So it was this huge fire in his hand. He threw it to the floor. Now, obviously, my first reaction is it's going to explode. So I try to catch it, to carry it and, to put the fire out or disconnect it so it like shuts off the gas. And I'm trying to do it in a way where people around me don't freak out, because I'm the one that needs to keep cool, right? So I catch it and I start rushing towards the outside, the back side of the kitchen to take it to the street. So if anything happened, it doesn't happen in the kitchen. And I don't pay attention that the fire is growing and it's becoming bigger and bigger, and I'm still holding it. By the time I get to the street and I throw it on the floor hard enough to disconnect the head from the gas bottle, it shuts off and everything's fine. But I look at my arm and I have what you see here is the tattoo. I didn't have scars, thankfully, but I had my entire arm burnt. My whole skin was black, basically. Kind of like what it is right now, but, some things don't change, I guess. And I had to carry out the service afterwards. I just wrapped my hand with a towel and kept on working, because that's what you do. As a leader, if you're a cook, I'm going to send you home. Yeah, I'm going to send you home. Go take care of that. But if you're the leader, you're doing New Year's service, you got to keep going.
Building your own brand and doing everything by yourself. Is it challenging?
Yes. It's challenging to, have to do, to build a website, build a brand, promote yourself, sell your products, talk to clients, and execute the events and clean up afterwards all by yourself, record your podcast, play video games, doing all that kind of stuff, work in a restaurant, doing all that kind of stuff. It is difficult, but the secret to, I guess, being able to kind of juggle so many things is put things on paper. It's very important to kind of try to keep your mind as clear as possible. So manage a calendar, or if you prefer like something that's a little bit more physical, virtual, whatever it is, there are so many tools out there to help you organize yourself and organize your day and actually find more time and make yourself efficient and proficient in order to execute more and have time to enjoy, your personal life and create that kind of balance. Now, yes, there are days that I don't feel like I want to stare at a screen for 4 hours and create that new page on my website, or my voice doesn't sound right to record a podcast episode, or I'm not really in the mood to play video games or do whatever it is. But it's fun that I have so many different things that I can do. So if I don't feel like doing this, I can do that. You know what I mean? Like if I don't feel like playing video games, I go out for a run. If I don't feel like going out for a run, I'll go and cook myself a nice dinner at home, or I don't know, start pickling or fermenting things at home. So
So, what would be the one thing that you would recommend to people who want to join us in this show? Or one thing you wish you knew before you started out?
if there's one thing I wish I knew before I started working in kitchens and restaurants in general, is just to keep an open mind and to try to learn as much as possible from every experience, from every restaurant, from every service, and every person you meet along the way. Because at the end of the day, this this field of industry, restaurants, is built on people. It's a very human kind of business, and people carry with them experience and knowledge. And at the end of the day, the best people and the top people in the field are the ones that know how to absorb and share ideas with other people.